Okay, Alex, a bit has been made about the fact that the lads came back a bit later than usual in pre-season. Does that have some benefits as well as some negatives, would you say?
Well, it was only a sort of small group that came back a bit later. Just international players that had obviously sort of their season was extended by a good sort of 2 to 3 weeks, some of them. So it was important that the fact that our sort of domestic season was already sort of elongated with the games because obviously the playoff final. The fact that the biggest concern for me was the fact that they didn't have enough rest period within that time rather than getting their fitness levels up, because their fitness levels are very good, but we need to make sure that they went and sort of recharged the batteries.
Yeah, a lot of the lads have said they've come back and hit the ground running in terms of fitness. I suppose that's a benefit from the season finishing a bit later, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I would like for them to get their break. You know, I think it's important because over the course of the season it's really intense. There's a lot of hard work, mentally as well as physically, and I think that mentally it's good for them to recharge their batteries, get away with their families and spend some time just sort of taking their minds off of football. But obviously we've got a huge challenge ahead of us this season, and everybody's come back in good shape and look refreshed and ready to go.
Are you happy then with where they are at the moment?
Yeah, we're looking good. I think it's just trying to get as many minutes as we can under sort of as many players as we can as belts and get them prepared for the games coming up. So obviously the closer it gets to the start of the season, we're going to have to sort of narrow it down to a starting 11. So it's really important that the players in particular are sort of hitting sort of their peak as the season starts.
Obviously going into your first full season at the club now, and how important is a full pre-season for you? I mean, in terms of the whole season as a context.
Yeah, I think it's important because you sort of lay a lot of principles in pre-season. You get to know the players more as well because you spend a lot of time with them. And I think we had a really good sort of atmosphere amongst the squad, certainly towards the end of the season. And we're sort of continued in that vein so far, so that's a good thing. I think the only sort of disappointing thing from our point of view is that the sort of targets we've tried to attract, we haven't managed to get in yet, because you want to try and incorporate them into the group and making sure that everybody's functioning as well as they can and that we're all in it together type of thing. But obviously if you haven't signed day players, then that can't happen.
We'll touch on that a bit more in a minute, but we're here in Germany at the minute. We're settled in, quite secluded out here, isn't it? I guess that's what you wanted. Yeah,
it's serving its purpose. You know, we went to St George's Park, which is the same. It's out in the middle of nowhere, and you're just sort of focusing on sort of fitness and football and making sure we're as well prepared for the season as possible. So we're settling up over here on the holiday. You know, I think there's been a lot of hard work put in, and the boys can hopefully have a good season and then look forward to taking their break once it's done.
And the matches so far, are you happy with how they've gone?
Yeah, I think obviously we didn't enjoy losing the game the other night against Maccabi Haifa, so which is unusual for us because we haven't lost a lot of games. But I think if you look at the team that we put out as well, it was more than capable of winning the game. And I think the performance over the 90 minutes merited a result from the game. Certainly second half I thought we were totally dominant, had good opportunities and just couldn't score. But in saying that, I think we made 5 changes within the game. And I think at the end we only had maybe 2 or 3 players that were sort of first team regulars last year. So it's good to get some of the other guys who hadn't been involved as much. We need to get them minutes in the pitch to see what they can do. So I've got an idea of what their sort of capabilities are for this season.
Of the 3 warm-up games left, two of the teams are playing in the Europa League this year, and Brentford are coming to Carrow Road as well. And obviously that they won there in the league last season. They're going to be pushed hard, the lads, aren't they? But I suppose that's what you want. Yeah,
we've sort of done sort of steady progress with the games. You know, we started with sort of non-league teams in and about the area to make sure we're trying to give back to the teams in and about us as well, which I think is commonplace, certainly at Norwich. And then we've come away and the games have sort of gradually got harder, and I expect that to be the case with the remaining 3 games. And obviously we'll be starting to put sort of plans in place for our starting 11. So the more regulars that I see sort of featuring, I'll start to sort of get more game time as sort of pre-season develops.
Looking ahead to that first game against Crystal Palace, you said when the fixtures came out that you'd noticed we're not playing any of the, how you termed it, big boys in the opening period. Does that put a bit of extra need to make a fast start to the season, or are you not seeing it like that?
I think it's difficult. You know, I think you look at Leicester last year. You know, people keep telling me you need a good start. Leicester had 3 quarters of the season where they didn't perform as well as they would have hoped, and then the last quarter they got on an unbelievable run and sort of keep themselves in the league, and the manager's getting touted for getting manager of the year. So I think in the Premier League every game's crucial. You know, you need to go into every game, try to pick up points. The start is really crucial because it takes pressure off the rest of the season. But for us it's just about winning games and try to pick up as many points as we can, and hopefully by doing that we can play some good football and give everybody sort of a good account of ourselves.
How excited are you about taking your team to the Premier League and testing yourself at that level as well?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, but to be honest, it's just another level up again. You know, I don't think too much of it. I just think about making sure I'm getting my team prepared and that we're going to go up there and get a right good go. And I've felt the same over the last couple of seasons. You know, it happened when I was up in Scotland as well, when we got promoted to the Premier League, and we had to go and adjust and make sure that we try and do as well as we could. We did really well. And then same when I came down in Norwich to begin with. You know, we need to make sure we try to win as many games, and we'll take the exact same approach in the Premier League.
You spoke about wanting to bed in some more principles over this pre-season. What exactly did you mean by that?
Just in terms of shape and different things like that, and making sure that the Premier League, we're going to come up against different challenges, and we've got to make sure we're prepared for each challenge that comes along. So just sort of discussing with the players different scenarios that we didn't really come across in the Championship, which we will face in the Premier League. You know, we've been studying some of the other teams, well, more me and the sort of analysis lads have been looking at other teams in terms of how they play and different challenges that we're going to come across, and it's just try to get some of the ideas into the players' heads at the moment, so when it does come, it's not as if it's a shock to them, and they're sort of semi-prepared for it. And then certainly when we're doing a sort of a lead up to the game that week, we'll focus on it a lot more in detail.
Is there going to be sort of a base mentality though that you go into every game with?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I think the mentality that we don't allow the opposition to play. We want to get up against them. We want to make sure that we're as competitive as we can. And when we get the ball, we want to go and try and keep it and attack with pace and get at them and try and create chances. And yeah, just make sure that we're competitive and that we're not giving too much respect to any team. You know, we've got to go and get after them.
Obviously, looking at the extraordinary run in the Championship last year, it's going to be more difficult to sort of impact you the games, isn't it? Especially in away games against the massive teams in the Premier League. But you're confident that sort of base mentality can be carried forward into every match? Yeah,
of course. You know, I think regardless who you're playing, you've got to have some sort of strategy where you're going to try and approach the game. And it's important that the players carry that strategy out, particularly against the bigger teams, because you can't give them any advantage. You know, if you go a goal or two behind, then it really is going to be tough. But we need to make sure that we're compact, but also we've got that cutting edge and we're aggressive, and we go and try and do what we're capable of doing, and not just worry about what they're capable of doing.
Let's talk about the group of players here now. Obviously, you said you were looking to add some more, certainly, but the group here have got a lot of Premier League experience to fall back on. What can this group achieve this season, do you reckon? It's
difficult to say. You know, I think it's how they adapt. You know, because I'm confident. I'm sure they're confident as well. But until you actually get started and start play the games, it's difficult to see how your group's going to respond in certain sort of up against certain opponents, and mentally they're tough enough to go and make sure that they don't give in and that they're prepared to sort of do what it takes to try and get that result. I've got confidence that is the case, but as I say, you don't really know until the games really kick off.
Do you think it is a bonus that so many of the lads have played a considerable amount of Premier League games?
Yeah, and I think you could see the determination for the lads. They were desperate to get back to the Premier League towards the end of the season, and how hard they worked to get there. And we'll be playing on that and making sure that all that sort of hard work hasn't went to waste. And by getting there, we certainly want to remain there and go and show everybody what we're capable of doing.
We all know you want to add numbers to the squad. What's your general assessment of the transfer window as a whole this summer?
Well, it's certainly been difficult for us. Obviously, it's a sort of newish type scenario to me in terms of trying to get so many players in at a different level. And we've tried our very best. We've been doing a lot of work behind the scenes. And I think the frustrating part more is having to wait on others. You know, because we've done what we can do. We've made offers. We've spoke to teams. We've spoke to players. We've spoke to clubs. And it's just try to get things over the line. You know. And the sort of parameters change quite often, which you would hope wouldn't be the case, but it is what it is, and we just need to deal with that and continue to try and do our best, and we'll persevere and we won't be deterred, and we'll continue to try and get our players in.
And are you still confident that you'll improve the areas that you want to improve in?
Yeah, I think that's crucial. You know, I think is to give us ourselves the best chance. We've got to make sure that we're competitive in terms of positions, so there's got to be at least 2 players for every position where they can go and sort of get the best out of each other by competing for that sort of number 1 role, and that's something that I'm looking to try and make sure we address.